Sports on the Hill podcast, season 5 finale, coming to you live from the lab. Sports OTHP, best DC sports coverage around.
You got to have a concept. You have a great concept. You guys are doing it, man, and it's an honor for me to just be a small rock, man, in your mountain. I'm gonna pop a top in your honor.
Mr. Doc Walker blessed us with his presence and knowledge.
We want to welcome in our next special guest, Haley Skarupa. She's a three-time world champion in women's ice hockey and most recently won Olympic gold with Team USA.
The Cap Stadium Series is definitely my favorite, obviously. I'm a huge Caps fan, I always have been, and to be there at that game with my teammates and for us to bring, our gold medals to there and share it with everyone in this area was really, really special for me, and just the support and it's been tremendous from everyone in this area, and you could feel that there at that game.
Welcome to Sports on the Hill podcast. Hashtag DC Sports Without the Politics with Carol and Robbie on True Radio Network.
By CP3. Many can copy us, but none can duplicate us. By CP3.
That's right. It's Monday night. Sports on the Hill podcast, True Radio Network, CP3 coming to you live from the lab. Robbie G coming to you live from the man cave. As I said, it's the season 5 season finale. We got a great show talking some Capitals, some Wizards, some NCAA tournament, a little bit of that. A little bit of that is still early. I don't. And we even got a little bit of Washington football team news and free agency. Robbie G, how you doing tonight, good sir?
Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. I have my fancy setup today. I'll do it makeshift live, but yeah, it's been good. I can't believe the Capitals have been able to win 7 in a row, or before I ended they lost one in there. But to go 7-0 without Tom Wilson is pretty amazing. Yeah, it's been a good week for Capitals and Capitals fans. But obviously there's still work to be done. It's obviously frustrating when you add someone like Tom Wilson back in the lineup and then you lose. So it's like there's still room to be improved, and they still need to get Eller back. I think that they have a lot of problems at the center position right now without him. But we'll get into that in our Capitals talk. The Wizards are frustrating. They win games we expect them to lose, and they lose games we expect them to win, and all sorts of and just some frustrating, heartbreaking losses. So I don't know what to expect from them. But we'll break that down in the Wizards segment. But I know before we get into all of that, you've got some news and notes you want to talk about with the Washington football team, and I'll let you do that.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, we already talked about the Ryan Fitzpatrick signing, 1 year, $10 million, $12 million with incentives. They also went out and got a wide receiver to complement Terry McLaurin, a speedy guy out of Carolina. I know some of the fans are going to talk about him coming from Carolina and Ron Rivera, but he was one of the top wide receivers in the free agency class. Curtis Samuel, speed guy. He's going to open things up for the offense because now they can't double team Terry anymore because now they have to worry about Samuel. He signed a 3-year, $34 million deal. I believe 15 or 16 million was guaranteed. He's definitely going to add to the offense. You put him in the mix with Logan Thomas, Terry, Antonio Gibson, McClissick, and you still forgot about Kelvin Harmon, who's coming off the ACL from last year. He's got Gandy Golden. I mean, Golden Gandy, I can't remember which one it is. He ain't really do too much this year. I had higher expectations for him this year, but, sometimes wide receivers take a little bit of time to get acclimated to the NFL, especially with him coming from a smaller school. So the offense is shaping up to look like it's definitely going to be improved this year. We saw what was lacking last year, so we can always hope to build on top of that. They also signed William Jackson, who was the top-rated cornerback in free agency, to a 3-year, $42 million deal with $26 million guaranteed. And some folks don't understand with the guaranteed money, that's a good thing because that money doesn't count against the cap. So therefore, you have basically a 4-year, $16 million deal for the top-rated cornerback in free agency. So that's $4 million going against the cap for the next 4 years and the $50 million that they have under the cap. So a lot of folks don't understand the guaranteed money, so that's just a little tidbit for you. But he's definitely one of the top-rated corners after Ronald Darby, who had an outstanding season here playing on a 1-year contract. He ended up signing with Denver. I think it was for about 10 or 12 million a year. Jackson's definitely going to change the complexion of the defense because he's a man corner, likes to play close. He's 6 foot, long arms, about a $190, good speed. He only has 3 career interceptions, and a lot of the people don't have a problem with that. But as he said in this press conference, they don't throw my way because I handle my business and do my job, so I don't get an opportunity for get many interceptions. But that definitely can help this year coming up with our defensive front and the way they get pressure. That always makes the secondary look better when the quarterback has to get rid of the ball quickly or, throwing off his back foot or getting hit, ball tap. We saw a lot of that this year with the defense, and hopefully it's only going to get better. Also, they re-signed Danny Johnson, who is the depth signing cornerback, also a kick returner. They signed him to a deal. There's still rumors of Ryan Kerrigan possibly coming back if he's still available after the draft. I saw a couple of articles about that. I haven't had a chance to confirm that, but I spoke to one of my sources earlier in the week, and he was like, pretty much it's already written on the wall that Kerrigan's going to go elsewhere because he wants more playing time and more, time on the field. And with Sweat, Young, and all the young guys we got, they're trying to get them acclimated and up to speed and at that game breaker, game changer level, and you don't even do that by playing. So we'll see how the Ryan Kerrigan situation is handled. So I would hate to see him in another uniform, but I totally understand. He still got gas in the tank. He still want to play. I wish him the best of luck as long as he's out the division if he does leave. Washington also re-signed Lamar Miller to a 1-year deal. They picked him up late in the season when we were having some issues with injuries at running back, and they re-signed him. So definitely going to be some good competition in training camp, and I can't wait to break down the off season with Dujanay when we come back from our break after season 5 ends tonight.
Yeah, crazy. I can't believe we're already 5 seasons into this kind of crazy time. I really.
Hold up, Robbie. Before I don't mean to cut you off, I forgot to mention one more major Washington football team news that hit a lot of fans to the depth. Nick Sundberg, long snapper, has been with the team. I believe it was 13 years. Was informed that he would be no longer with the team. So I had a couple of folks hitting me up asking me how come they cut him. He's been doing a good job. My response was, they're getting younger. They drafted a center last year that didn't really get enough playing time. They just re-signed, Chase to a 4-year deal. So they're looking to get younger, looking to give other guys opportunity, and who knows what they might be doing in the special teams game. So, a lot of fans were upset about him being let go because he's been with the team so long and, it's pretty much done a great job. He's only had a few miscues in his career here. But just wanted to let folks know I didn't want folks to think I forgot about good old Nick Sundberg.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, well, we've got a busy week, so let's get into some hockey talk. We usually be bringing Anna in right about now. We actually are going to have a guest in a little bit. We will talk about it from the New York perspective. I know that there'll be no surprise to people who listen to this podcast who that is. But before we bring Brian in, and we also will talk NBA with him, we'll also bring DC's People's Champion, maybe Arun as well. And then I know that we'll also maybe end with a little bit of March Madness talk with Brian Brennan as well, since I know that he loves March Madness. I have to be honest, I've not been as diehard as I usually am. March Madness was a big part of my life for a very, very long time. But I would say this is probably the year I've cared the least about college basketball. But I have been following a little bit. The one game I cared about the most was actually one that Brian and I were talking about a lot during. It was also during a Rangers game versus the Caps. So I was like, you should really want the March Madness game, and I should really want the hockey game. But he also wanted the Rangers to win more than the March Madness game. So he got what he wanted. I guess I sort of got what I wanted with Maryland moving on, but I would have traded it for a Capitals victory. We all know how diehard of a Caps fan I am. But let's get into the first couple of games. The first game we actually don't really need to break down from last week because it happened on our podcast. And I'm just gonna grab my water here, but it was a amazing game. I would just really quickly recap, just for people who didn't check in last week. We scored 6 goals. Ovechkin was able to break some records. Just a great all-around game against a bad Buffalo team that we kind of took advantage of. But it was 5-0 when our podcast started for our 5th anniversary. So if you want a full recap of that one, we break that one down before, during, and after. I think that's kind of a better synopsis. We don't really need to rehash it. So go back to last week's show. We talk a lot about that game because it was happening live, and it was just a crazy game. But just your quick thoughts, Carol, on that one, and then we'll move on.
It was just total domination. Ovi, got 7-17. Double V finally got that elusive shutout he's been deserving all season, and it set the precursor for this week. Definitely gonna talk about the loss because I got some choice words for a certain player. But yeah, it definitely started the week off in the right way for this team.
Yeah. So there are some question marks about who you're going to go into goal in the next game, right? So we debated it during that show, and then we didn't really do a post game for that one. So I didn't feel like you needed to do a post game when it was like during the podcast. But we talked about, do you split the time with both goaltenders, or do you go back to the hot hand when you win 6-0? They chose to split goaltenders, which I still think was the right decision, just to try to get both of them going. And then they've got a tough matchup against the Islanders in this next game. It's kind of for the division title at the halfway point of the season, if you will. The Islanders were on a 9-game win streak. They were the hottest team in the NHL coming into it. The Capitals at the time were on a 6-game win streak, I believe. Or this maybe made it 6? Hold on. Yeah, no, this made it 6. So they were coming in with a 5-game win streak. And I'm happy that they gave Sam an opportunity to play this one. I know he played really well in those games against Philadelphia, and I think he deserved to have that opportunity. The scoring in this game, I'm going to give the scoring. I'm going to let Carol, you break it down a little bit farther, and then I'm going to share this podcast to a couple of different Caps groups while you do that. But real quickly, the scoring was as follows. TJ Oshie with his 7th goal of the season at 10:36 into the second period. He had an assist by Kuzi, who's been playing well and is on a really hot streak with points. Remember, Kuzi had not been playing well for a long time. And Ovi got his 11th assist of the season on that first goal. And then just about 5 minutes later, Ovi scores himself to his 12th goal of the season on the power play. Assist by Justin Schultz and Nicholas Backstrom's 21st assist of the season. A lot of analysts think Nicholas Backstrom's actually the best player for the Capitals at the halfway mark. And I think they might be right. I mean, Ovi's had a hot couple of weeks there, but I think if you're talking about consistently from the start to the end of the season, Nicholas Backstrom will get the next goal 28 seconds into the third period to tie Ovechkin with the team high at 12. It was a power play goal, assist by Jacob Verana, his 11th, and John Carlson's 19th assist. Made it 3-0. There was a power play goal about 4 minutes later to make it 3-1, and that was the end of the scoring. But Ovi gets the top star, Nick gets the second one, Sammy gets the third. Ovi's played great in this matchup. Talk about Ovechkin and Backstrom a little bit, and I'll share just some cap screens.
All right. Well, I don't have a problem talking about Obi. Told you it's been documented and noted. I'm working on trying to get an interview with that guy. Ovechkin, well, going back to Nicky, to me, he's definitely been the best player on the ice for this team. He's leading the team in points. He's tied for goals. He's always a 200-foot player, play defense, offense. He looks like a small guy, but he uses leverage and uses his weight and throws it around when he needs to. He's always in the good passing lanes on defense, breaking plays up and back checking and doing certain things. It's just sad that he doesn't get more notoriety and more pub that he does. Folks have been noticing especially after the Stanley Cup run and lately, how valuable he is. And you mentioned Lars Eller being out, because in this game, face-offs was the issue, and I agree. The center play has been lacking. Kuzi was out for a while, now Eller's out. Backstrom has been one steady that's been handling his business game in and game out, and doing the damn thing pretty much on every phase of the game. And Ovi, like they say, he's starting out slowly, but now, he's starting to get hot. Couple of goals in consecutive games, and he's invaluable. He's getting older. I always talk about how amazing it is how he's only missed 17 games or 12 due to injury, some due to suspension or whatever from that All-Star game or whatever. But the way that he plays and how effective he is, it's just amazing what he does on ice and how he stays healthy and constantly playing at a high level. I shared a video after he broke the Esposito, after he went to number 6 alone. Kevin Weeks on NHL Network, I actually, took a snippet of what he said when he was breaking down over. You can check that out on my IG page, iCurlPorter, or I think I shared it to the Sports on THP page. I got to check to see if I did. I think I was still on restrictions.
Yeah, he's top 3 in winners now. He's top 3 in power play. He's top 6 overall. It's just amazing. I just wanted to say, so many people are commenting. I'm sorry I didn't get to your comments earlier. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. Rev T's tuning in. He says, hey. Josh Kirby.
What's going on, Red? What's up, Josh?
And then Eric says, rest in peace, Elgin Baylor, which is a good shout out.
Oh wow, I didn't even know. I didn't even know that.
So rest in peace to him, indeed. And Eric also said, go Lady Terps. Josh said, I think Washington is slowly but surely rebuilding. Eric thinks we should resign Kuzi. How does that affect supplemental draft for Seattle? Kuzi we already have for a bunch of years, actually, so we don't need to re-sign him. There's actually people think we may want to expose him just because he's got a big cap hit and we're going to be under the wire.
No, that's the future. That's crazy.
Yeah, so but it's tough. He's very expensive. So it'd be interesting to see who we put up there on the chopping block. But we definitely don't need to resign him because we've already done that. But
didn't I see that they signed Trevor Van Riemsdyk?
Yes, he did for 2 years at under $1 million per year, which for a depth, defensive player, it's really smart because we're probably going to have to expose somebody on our defense. So, somebody's going to need a spot. I know people are like, well, we haven't really seen much of him, but I'm telling you, he's solid. Like, I know that there's a reason why he's on that team as an alternate in case of injury this year. So,
what's the dude? I always love his name. Now I can't remember.
Siegenthaler.
Yeah, Siegenthaler. He's probably going to be the one that's going to get exposed.
Right. Yeah. So, they may have to expose more than one in theory, just with how many you hold. So, Eric says you need to get Big Willie in the flow again. Love when he scores. I agree. I think that once the center lines get fixed, I think the chemistry will come. I think it's tough because sometimes when you adapt to a player being out of the lineup, the first game back, it doesn't always go the right way. You're like, oh, we're going to be better because we're adding this player in. But they've had to play with this sort of chemistry, and they had to go where this whole thing is like the NHL is out to get us. We're going to prove them by going 7-0, and they had this chip on their shoulder. And then when even though Tom is such an incredible force and he pumps them up right before the games and all that, but sometimes maybe adrenaline's too big, and we beat the Rangers the night before, so they want it. So I mean, there's a lot of circumstances. I think that they will figure a way to get him in the mix. The question is, what line do you slate him into, and whether or not you keep Ovechkin and Backstrom together, or like 2018 where you keep them apart. Those are sort of the debates that over the next couple of weeks that we're going to have. And they should try it both ways and see what works. I mean, this is kind of, I don't want to say it's a time to experiment, but it's kind of the time where you're trying to figure it out on what you're going to do for the playoffs.
I mean, we've seen them mixing the lineups up when folks were out and making adjustments. So they're getting work, in-game action with switched-up lineups. With Tom, I mean, you can put him anywhere, honestly. It's just right now with, like you say, Eller out and the chemistry they were having before he got back, and that's what I mean, we're going to break down the game, the second game against the Rangers, but to me, they played well, even with him getting into the mix and, changing up things a little bit until a certain play in the third period that I'm going to break down when we start breaking down that game. So I didn't really see too much, fall off or anything, because the Rangers have been playing the Caps tough because they take away time and space. Their motto is just speed, play defense, pressure defense. So the passes that normally the Caps been making, with that pressure defense, they just weren't as crisp and, not effective because the Rangers, the way they play. So I thought it was a good game.
I think that's a good point, because I think we match up badly against the Rangers because of their style, where they clog up the neutral zone, and we just don't get much flow going into those games. And we'll talk about both those games. They really kind of tried to bring the momentum to a halt, and they tried to play with this sort of, where they're going to take advantage of a couple of plays here and there where we're caught flat-footed, but they weren't really pushing the whole game, right? It's not like some of these young, fast teams that are like constantly pushing. Like, that's not really the Rangers' style. Like, that's more like what the Islanders are doing, what sometimes Philly does and what we see Pittsburgh has done in the past. It's just a completely different style of game. Tony said when the Caps are missing someone, they seem to play harder and play 60 minutes. And when they play a full 60 minutes, and they have a full, then when they have a full team, which I agree, which is kind of strange. I do think that some of the intensity is a little bit of a letdown maybe when they don't have the chip on their shoulder. So they just kind of have to manufacture it. I liked how, the coach said that he didn't have to get his team riled up for the Islanders game, right? Because he knew it was kind of built in. And I think against the Rangers, there might be a little bit of a letdown in that case. And I love that we're back on Twitch. So I just want to say hi to our Twitch people that are watching there. But we've got a poor Sabres fan in the mix. I feel bad for you. Your team is not doing well, and I just think that they don't like the coach, or I don't know what the situation is, but it just hasn't worked. And it's a tough division. I mean, look, 6 of those 8 teams made the playoffs last year. I'd argue the 5th place team in our division is better than the 4th place team in any of the 3 other divisions. So, it's just you're getting just hammered every night against a good team. Eric says the Caps are the worst passing team in NHL history. Changed my mind.
Say what?
I wouldn't go that far.
The worst passing team? In what aspect? I mean, we've seen some tic-tac-toe plays, beautiful passing, tape-to-tape, saucer passes from Ovechkin, Backstrom, Oshie, Kuzi. Yeah. I can't. He needs to quantify that statement, because I'm not understanding what he's talking about.
Yeah, I agree. I think Kuzi and Backstrom both are sauce artists, as I like to say. Their ability to throw sauce on a puck and make it spin backwards, or hit them on the corner slot, or just sometimes when the center is so clogged up, you think there's no way they can get it through there and get it to the guy down low, and they can. So for me, but I agree, in breakouts maybe sometimes out of the zone, sometimes we don't make the right reads. I think that Dylan got caught flat-footed and a bad pass there. I don't know if he's referencing some of that we saw in that last Rangers game.
Now that Dylan play, that was, to me, that was just stupidity, because all he had to do was bounce the puck off the boards to clear the zone, but he wanted to try to make a move like he's Nicky Akuzi, and then Zibanejad basically roughed him off the puck. If he would have just bounced it off the boards, a simple play, they could at least earned a point. But then the momentum swung with that play. So, I mean, I don't know if he's referencing that. I hope not, because that was just a boneheaded play on Dylan's part. But to me, they overpassed sometimes, because there was a couple of times that they had some breakouts where Kuzi passed when he should have shot it. Carlson passed when he should have shot it, because they're sometimes too unselfish, because it's sometimes the curse being together so long, they want to see each other, excel and score. So they don't want to be like, well, I'm trying to haul the puck. Carlson having a great year with numbers wise, so he's looking to get other people involved instead of so-called hogging the limelight. Sometimes I feel like they're too unselfish and overpass, as in not saying that they're a bad passing team. That is like the furthest thing from my mind, honestly.
Yeah, I don't see it either, but I can understand maybe a little bit of some of those moments. I'm not sure exactly. So he says this year has been better, but dump and chase is their historical signature. But dump and chase isn't about passing. It's about trying to get through the clogged up center. Yeah, it's a when they're stacked on the line or they've clogged the center of the ice, the middle zone of it, the neutral zone. It's tough to get it through. So the idea is to get it to the red line and through, and then chase after it, and then work on the cycle and grind them down.
And then that's where your forecheck game gets involved also, and the Cowboys get to throw their weight around. So when they dump and chase, the defense is on the chasing after the puck, and they get them hits on the boards, and then later on in the game, those defenders are looking over their shoulder because they're not trying to get hit again. So the dump and chase is a very key role in what the Capitals do.
And we don't have the speed of some of these other teams, right? I'm not going to say that we're the fastest team. We have certain players, Verana and other players can show their true speed, but it's not a constant thing. We don't have speed lines, like some teams have. And so to get past that and to get through, and the defenses in the NHL has gotten much faster, right? So they're able to adjust, shot blocking, the angles, all of it's much faster than it used to be. So I think this is a way to try to mitigate some of that and get it past that. So, I mean, I understand it's not, you wish you could just break them down with speed and then just, beat them, but it's not going to always be a breakaway. It's like, how do you have to, mitigate the middle part of the ice, right? That's, there's always time in your defensive zone, there's time in your offensive zone, but how you're sort of dealing with that center pressure and getting through it and not getting clogged up and then having like a trap style and then using that momentum against you, right? So sometimes you just got to get it deep so that they don't catch you flat-footed.
Yeah, plus the Capitals play a hell of a neutral zone defense lately. They've been stepping up their neutral zone defense. So, if you sit back and look at it, it's hard for the other teams to get into the zone when they Caps, especially when they have a lead. Lately, they've been stacking the neutral zone, been in the passing lanes, getting deflections, and making things happen in the transition game. So it's a give and take. It's a strategy. It's not just that's what I have to remind folks with football, but the same thing with hockey. The other team gets paid too. They're not just out there just to lay down for the Cowboys, go out there and score 6 goals every night and shutting out everybody. They they're going to push back. We all know hockey's going to have momentum swings and pushes and momentum swings when fights break out or a hard hit that doesn't get called and the team rally around it. So you have to appreciate the sport of it, that there are going to be pushbacks, and the Capitals aren't always going to be on top and always going to be the best that night. Sometimes they're going to get outplayed because some teams prepare better or are fresher, not coming off a back-to-back or whatever. So I mean, honestly, I'm still tripping off the passing question. I'm still trying to get my head around that one.
He kind of quantified it a little bit more, saying he remembered seeing the finals, the Red Wings. I was like, oh, that's what it's supposed to look like in the 1988.
Oh, come on.
Well,
that's a whole nother era of hockey right there. Come on now.
Yeah, so we're not that good. I won't say that we're late 90s.
I mean, the Red Wings were historic, man. I mean, come on.
Right, so that's fair. But let's get back into these the recaps and just to talk about the good and the bad.
Let's talk about the good Rangers game.
Yeah, let's talk about the good game. Do you have anything more about the Islanders game? I'm just happy that we were able to win. And I thought some people made a big to-do of Trotz saying he wished that Ovi wasn't breaking records in front of him, but he just says he doesn't want it to his team.
Yeah,
That's like
that's.
a whole.
I hope folks didn't take that the
Oh,
wrong
they
way.
took that and they
Oh,
ran with it. They made a
geez.
headline, and
When did Capitals fans become like Washington football team fans? When did that happen?
I don't know. People got stuck with headlines and got caught up in that last week. So I was like,
Trotz does not like anybody to break records on. He said that when he was here as a coach,
right.
and that's
And
just
he says that, and he honestly said later, he clarified, he says, I actually root for them when they're not playing us.
Yeah,
Which
I
makes
mean,
sense. I mean, he won a cup with us, you know.
anybody
Sure,
that
he
hates
doesn't-
on Trotz just got a problem, man. I'm sorry, Trotz. To me, Trotz is one of the most genuine, best coaches in the NHL, and anybody that has a problem with him just need to. I don't know what they. I'm not going to get. I'm not going to try
I
to
think
get us.
people feel like hurt that it didn't work out. I think there's still some butthurt.
I mean,
fans,
that's.
right?
But it's a business. You have to understand that. You know,
We weren't gonna like triple what we were paying. We were willing to go up a little bit, but not that much. And he wanted more years in term than we wanted to give him. And I think it's as simple as that. He found somebody that was willing to give him what he wanted.
and
We
you see
tried
what
to
the
go
Islanders
cheap
are doing.
approach.
So I mean, he's a quality coach.
Right, and we want to try to get a cheap approach. Didn't work. We're now trying to go with a veteran coach that honestly, at the time when we got Trotz, was the guy I wanted back then. So we'll see how he does. There's still, you know, we still.
You know, I'm a Trotz fan. I was a fan when he was in Nashville. I just like his whole approach to the game, and then watching the.
It's funny that we keep on getting old Nashville coaches, right? Now we got Laviolette right afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, when I watched the what was the thing on Epics when they did the behind the scenes of the Stanley Cup, and just seeing him interacting with his family and his son, what was it, Nolan? Everybody fell in love with that kid, and that just gave you insight into him. And what really got me was when they won a game and he pulled out a 40-year-old English. I'm like, Trotz drink malt liquor? I said, dang, I never would have guessed it.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so
Trotz is a hell of a guy, man.
Yeah, he is a hell of a guy. I like him. I wouldn't have been upset if we stuck with him, but I understand it's a business move, and we got to move on. And it'll be an interesting battle if Trotz has to play against Laviolette in the playoffs. Let's move on to the next Rangers game. We're gonna give our initial recap, and then we're gonna bring Brian in to get his thoughts on this, and then we'll talk about the next game with him as well.
And he better not be smiling either.
Well, I mean, it's 1-1, right? We each got one, so we can both smile, maybe. All right, so the Breadman continues his success since he's come back. It was his 8th goal of the season. Power play, Artemi Panarin, if people don't know the nickname, the Breadman. And it was 1-0 for a very long time in this game. And then Alex Ovechkin said, let me take the team on my shoulders and do Alex Ovechkin type things and just come back and win it. And I watched this with Z, and he had his Ovechkin jersey on, and he was rooting, and we were having a good time. And I was starting to lose a little bit of hope just because there hadn't been any goals. And 13-18 in, Ovechkin scores his 13th goal of the season. It's his 5th game in a row with a goal. It's his 12th time in his illustrious career that he's had 5 or more games in a row where he scored a goal, which is crazy. The next two on that list, if anyone's curious, is Stamkos with 9 and Sidney Crosby with 9. So he's got an entire quarter more than those, if you want to break it down into sets of 3 there. But it's pretty impressive. What he's been able to do
I think that was since 2015. I think that was.
2005.
5. Okay, I know it was 5. Like I saw that same stat too. I mean, what can you say about it? I mean, great athlete, great person, and just doing the damn thing on the ice, man. Gotta love that dude.
Yeah, and I think we talked about it last week. Orlov getting his family back and back home to Virginia rather. Really, I think changed his emotions, his trajectory, and I think Orlov's played much better since then. And the same thing with Ovechkin. He's got his family back, and you can tell they want to play for their family. And I think the distance, even if they felt safe with their own family or whatever in Russia, I think that there's something about having them in the house and not being alone and being able to see family. I'm sure it was very lonely to have them. I'm sure they're FaceTiming and doing other things, but Obi scores that first goal, and I'm ecstatic. I'm like, it ties the game. anything can happen. I thought maybe we'll get like a point out of this game. We'll go to overtime, and who knows what happens. I did not expect 3 minutes and 9 seconds later for him to score again. His 14th now this season. So the first one was his 13th. Kuzia his 10th assist. Schultz had his 12th assist. The second one, 3 minutes, 9 seconds later, it was Ovechkin's 14th goal of the season. John Carlson's 20th assist of the season. And Zdeno Chara's 7th assist of the season. And they were able to win this game 2-1. Just incredible that Ovechkin kind of piggybacked it. I had a celebratory post game where we ate red cupcakes with Zach, which he enjoyed. Carol, I didn't get your take on that game specifically afterwards, but what were some of your thoughts on it?
Well, quick scoring update. I'm also watching the Anaheim Minnesota game. Minnesota just scored, make it 2-1 in the third period with 15:50 left. It was tied up at 1-1 for a while, and Minnesota just got a goal. For anybody that's a Minnesota fan of Anaheim, this game, like you said, it was 1-0 for a while. I worked a long day. I had made the mistake of laying down, and I dozed off. And then when I woke up, it was right after Obi scored the second goal to take the lead. So I had to rewind it back and look at the whole breakdown. But like you said, he took over the game with 7 minutes left and basically beat the Rangers by himself 2-1. The face-offs, they actually won the face-off battle this game with 57%. Went 0 for 1 on the power play, out-hit them 32-23, but they got outshot very badly, 33-18. We talked about the Rangers style, their aggressive nature, the speed that they use to get into the neutral zone and push the action and put pressure on your defense. They look to run and they activate their D very often, because you never know when. With most teams, they pick and choose, but these guys are flying around, interchanging. The D is getting involved, making nice passes, getting goals, getting deflections. So I don't know what it is about the Rangers and the Capitals this year, but glad they got the victory in this game, because that in this game between them, that makes it 1 win and 2 losses, and the Rangers have pretty much dictated the pace in all 3 games if it wasn't for Obi taking over in the last 7 minutes. And their goalies, Kincaid and I forgot the other guy's name. I know Brian, chime in when he gets on. But both of those guys, I don't know if they've seen the Capitals enough and know, to be extra aware to the passes and, how crisp they are. But they've been playing some stellar goal against the Capitals. I mean, the Capitals have gotten some bad bounces, and like we talked about, overpassing sometimes when they think they should have just shot the puck to the net and see what happens. Because we've seen what happens when you shoot the puck to the net. You never know. Great misdirection, go off the defender's skate, stick, whatever. So it's just interesting how this team is, top in the toughest division in the league, and they having problems with the 6th place team in the division that early in the season folks were just, taking advantage of. And
I think that them as a 6th place team would have been maybe 5th place or 4th place in some of these other divisions, though. So I think the Rangers are a lot more dangerous than their record would say, because they have to play some of these other teams, and it's such a grind out division. Alexander Georgiev is the guy who was in goal for this game, and he was fantastic, but we only put up 18 shots against, and he eventually gave up 2 goals. But before those last 2 shots, at that point, they'd only had 16 shots on goal for the first 2 periods plus, and so they just weren't getting shots through. Talking the neutral zone and just playing good defense.
And that's been a trend against the Rangers in all 3 games.
Yeah, and all right, we'll bring Brian in real quick, because I am curious to get his thoughts on both games. Hey Brian, how you doing?
How's it going, guys? How's it going?
What's going on, Brian?
I'm not smiling, Carol. I'm not smiling.
Not yet, anyway. But I mean, I've always told you, Mika Zibanejad. I love his name. I don't know why. I just love to say his name. But he had an outstanding game, a hat trick with 3 assists, a couple of games. But he smacked.
He scored. He had 3 assists in a row, and then he had 3 goals in a row.
That's ridiculous, man. But
it ties an NHL record for 6 points in a period.
Insane.
It was only happened now twice.
With a name like Zibanejad, man, he deserved it. I'm just glad he didn't do it against us, but In the
Yeah, we
second
played much
game.
better against him, I thought, but not in the second game. But
Yeah.
well, I mean, actually, I think we played pretty well against him. I think you just give him one opportunity. And
Yeah, he's gonna. You
Yeah.
thought, man, he hit that top shelf. I was hot. I ain't even gonna lie. Before we break the game down, when that play happened, because I told you, whenever the other team scores against the Capitals, like I can see the play happen before it happens. And as soon as Dylan got the puck, I was like, something doesn't feel quite right. And he tried to make that move. Jabanajak checked him. He fell, and I was like, that's not good. Next thing I know, it was like a sniper shot at the top. The goalie couldn't even do nothing. It was so quick, and I was like, that fuck, game over.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we get into that game, I do want to get Brian's thoughts on this first game. You guys did control the tempo and the momentum for most of the game, and obviously, like Ovechkin had 2 opportunities with rebounds, kind of like down low. But what were some of your thoughts, I guess, on the highs and lows in that game?
Yeah, like you said, very high and low game for I guess both teams. I thought the Rangers really were gonna have it in the bag. They had the lead going into the third. And like you said, Georgiev was playing well. They weren't getting a ton of shots, like you said, but Georgiev was stopping pretty much every shot thrown his way. And then just out of nowhere, Ovechkin pretty much takes over and does what he does best. I mean, what he's been doing pretty much ever since he came into the NHL. So that was, it was frustrating in that aspect, I guess, but as a whole, a good game, a good hockey game for sure.
I think both teams played a great hockey game.
Yeah, and I agree with what you said, Robbie. That and I might be biased as a Rangers fan, but I do think the Rangers would be doing better if they were in a different division.
If they're in the Canada division, I think they'd be in third place. I legitimately feel that way. I
think this team is a lot better than where they stand in the division. But this is a good hockey. I thought really both these games, the one the Caps won and the one the Rangers won, were both pretty good hockey games.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna grab I'm gonna go through the scoring real quickly, and then I'm gonna let Carol give his thoughts, and then get your take on this one too, Brian. Just because I need to go grab another drink real fast. But the goals for the second game, the Rangers scored in the first period again. And then in the third period, John Carlson finally broke it. I was yelling "shutout" so much at the TV because I was getting so frustrated. I was hoping to jinx them. And then John Carlson comes through, his 7th goal of the season, assist by Tom Wilson, his 11th, Nicholas Backstrom's 22nd, ties at 1-1. And I thought maybe we'll get a overtime, or who knows what will happen. Maybe we'll get a repeat of what happened in the previous game. But Dylan makes a boneheaded play that Carol's already alluded to, and Zibanejad makes him pay for it right away. That snipe, as Carol talked about, it's a beautiful goal. I mean, as a hockey purist, it was give credit where credit is due. He's an incredible player, and I think he's definitely one of the biggest stars for the Rangers right now. And unassisted, again, because he ripped it off, 2-1. And then 1932 empty net goal. I don't take much credence to that. To me, it's like a 2-1 game. It's counted as a 3-1 game because that's how it works. But it's an empty net. I don't blame Sammy, for example. Sammy only gave up the 2 goals in this game, and so he played pretty well. Because again, we went back and forth. We gave each goalie an opportunity, which I still think was the right decision in this. Carol, while I go get a drink, you break your thoughts down, and then go to Brian to have a little fun.
Yeah, I really wanted this game, just the fact that the Rangers had, won the first 2, and one of the Capitals to even the series up when it was 1-0. I was like, okay, can't get shut out. Ended up switching TVs and everything, put it on the second TV. Put it on the second TV, Carlson scores. I'm like, all right, bet. At least we can force overtime. Get a point, keep the lead in division, everything good. Then an innocent dump in into the defensive zone. And Dylan decides he wants to get fancy. And to me, that was the turning point in the game right there. The manager checked him, lost balance, stole the puck, shot it, all basically one motion. Game was over. The empty netter, yeah, they pulled the goalie, tried to, we've seen the Capitals be successful. 6-on-5, previous years. Unfortunately, this game it didn't work out. I felt like I said, I felt it was a well played game on both ends. The Rangers have been giving the Capitals problems all season in all 4 matchups. Like I said, they take away time and space. They're aggressive. They're fast. They activate their D whenever. They're not afraid. I know they have a new coach that's filling in. I think he played was a college coach. I know Brian can fill us in a little bit more.
Oh yeah, he's the AHL head coach. He's from the AHL.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now they mentioned that, I didn't know who the team was. I figured it was college. I think
Yeah.
I get football and hockey mixed up. But they definitely played a good game. It was definitely a good game. It was unfortunate that it came down to well, we're used to seeing the Capitals take advantage of the play, so I guess I got to take the good with the bad. Capitals made a bad play. The other team capitalized. They stood in first place. And Brian, I'll let you break down your synopsis of this game.
You've already broken it down really well. The 2 games really were very similar. The Friday and Saturday game were both very similar. Rangers went in with a 1-0 lead, and the Capitals scored the third, and that's when I was kind of thinking like, oh boy, here we go again. It's gonna be just like last night. But yeah, you mentioned the boneheaded play by Dylan, but I have to give credit to Mika too. That's a really nice play by Mika, who is having a great couple of weeks here after a really slow start to the season. He had COVID, and he was working his way back from that. And so he's just now kind of hitting his stride. We talked about it at the game against Philly on Wednesday, where he had the 3 assists and the 3 goals. And then he had this great play too. So I was pretty happy with the win. I think we all kind of agreed last week this would be a split situation. Both teams would win. One team would win one game. One team would win the other. I'm not too surprised, honestly. That's how this went. I'm pretty happy with the win though in this one.
Makes sense. Well, I want to talk about the week ahead with Brian because obviously it's a division where we play all the same teams all the time, so we all know these teams pretty well, and I want to kind of get his take going forward. Also, we play the Rangers a bunch of these times, so it's kind of fitting to talk about it. So real quickly, I'm going to just talk about the schedule for the next 2 weeks. So if people don't know if they're listening live or listening back, we take next week off as our week in between. This is our season 5 finale. We'll take next week off, and then we'll come back. I know Brian's favorite time of the year. We bring baseball back to Sports on the Hill podcast, and we'll probably keep it the same format where we talk basketball first, and that way the guys can get their basketball talk in, and then we'll keep Brian on, and we'll do baseball towards the end, just because I think that way easier for people's schedule. But we may swap those. We'll talk about it, whether or not baseball or basketball goes first. We'll continue starting with hockey talk. So we're going to talk about 2 weeks of games really quickly. We're not going to break each game down, but I'm just going to give the general flow and get each of your takes on the upcoming 2 weeks. So it's, I believe, 7 games that I got to list out here. We'll have 2 against New Jersey on Thursday and Friday. And then Sunday, we play the New York Rangers, or both of those are at 7 on Thursday and Friday, back-to-back. So we've got a big gap here, which is a problem for the Capitals. They don't particularly do well with that. And then Sunday, they're playing the Rangers in Washington to end a 6-game homestand. That's a noon game. I believe that game is on NBC, so it's a nationally televised game. And then Tuesday, it's kind of a home and home. So just they'll have a day off on Monday, and then Tuesday they go to the Rangers. And then on Thursday, they'll play at the Islanders at 7 o'clock. And then Friday, they play at New Jersey at 7. And then Sunday, they play at New Jersey at 3 o'clock. So it's an afternoon game. And then we'll be able to cover both weeks of those coming up. So it's 4 games against New Jersey, to recap it. 2 games against the Rangers, and a game against the Islanders. Carol, we've kind of dominated New Jersey. So let's talk about them first. But at the same time, they're kind of due for a win against us because they've been a lot of close games. It's basically all of our remaining New Jersey games are coming up, I believe, in this stretch. What are your thoughts about playing New Jersey so many times?
Jersey, unfortunately, Capitals had their number. I think I talked about it the last time they matched up. They won the last 27 out of 29 or something. New Jersey still, getting their stuff together, rebuilding, changing the front office, getting new players in. Um, I don't see any.
They've beaten Pittsburgh twice in the last 4 games, I believe. So shout out to them for at least doing that.
True, true, but we know just like when the Capitals had beat Boston, 13 games in a row, that they just sometimes you just have a team's number. And with the Devils, where they are, they've been close games and like they're blowouts, like the Rangers blew out Philly 9-0, nothing like that. But once the Capitals, get their game together, Jersey's going to give their push, they're going to give their best effort. But once the Capitals take over the momentum of the game, there's pretty much nothing Jersey can do with all the talent that the Capitals have and the excellent passing that they have. It's just David versus Goliath in my point of view. If the Jersey gets one out of those four, I'll be shocked. I think the Caps will win all four against Jersey. And with the Rangers, we've talked about the Rangers been matching up well against the Capitals this year. They got a 3-1 advantage head to head right now, so the Capitals definitely need this game. Need both of those games, and the Islanders, the Capitals, I believe, are 3-0 against them. To Trot's dismay and dislike, but it's always a good game because Islanders, play a similar style to what the Capitals do. We know Trotz, we know how he plays. He knows the Capitals, he knows the new system that they're running, but he knows the players. So it's going to be interesting. I hope the Capitals can go 4-0, against the Islanders. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, I think those are. I think they'll have some success. I mean, in these games. I mean, New Jersey, like you guys said, is not very good despite their success recently against Pittsburgh. They're still one of the worst teams in the league as a whole. They're slightly ahead of Buffalo in our division, who is the worst team in our division right now. And you mentioned that they matched up well with they've had some tough matchups in the past, the Islanders. So see how that goes as well. You mentioned Trotz, of course, former coach. I always love to see when they match up. And as far as the Rangers game go, we'll see. I honestly kind of expect them to split again. I kind of expect them to have another split. I just think that they like you guys have all said, they match up very well with the Rangers. Capitals match up very well. So I think that they could be looking at a split in that matchup. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I think we'll win the majority of the New Jersey games. I think we'll probably maybe lose that Islanders game. We'll probably split the Rangers game. I think it's not going to be like we were doing really well 7-0. I think there's going to be a little bit of a bump in the road here, which you kind of have to mitigate the ups and lows of a season. Like you're not going to win every game, and it's just kind of how you play the different phases in a lot of different ways. But I'm excited to see how they do here. I am thinking they're probably going to maybe go 4-3 or 5-2, something in that range. I don't think they're going to win all of them. I don't think that they are going to have a losing record either by the end of it. I don't know if I think they're going to lose one to New Jersey. And I think they're going to lose one to the Islanders and one to New York. So that's why I think 4-3. But we'll see. It'll be interesting. This is a good test for them to try to take advantage of some of the stretch here, and what would be a little bit of an easier stretch. I mean, it's such a tough, brutal division. There's no really easy stretch for them.
Agreed.
All right. Well, I think that we have summed up all of the hockey talk. And Carol, unless there's something else that you would like to talk about before we switch gears to talk a little basketball.
No, I really can't say nothing else. We pretty much covered it in great detail for the season 5 finale. So yeah, I think we're pretty good with the hockey. I'll go ahead and get off cam and let you guys break down the good old NBA and Washington Wizards and whatever they were doing this week.
Yeah, we may even talk a little March Madness at the end too, and we'll see how that goes. We got DC's People's Champ. We got Arun, and so we'll bring both of them in as well. Champ, we've got a little bit of a Hassan. Do you have the right one unmuted? There we go. See if that works. Yeah, okay. I think that works better. All right, cool. All right, so I'm going to try something real quick. I have not tried to share screen and get it to work correctly on Twitch yet, so this is going to be a first go-around test. Let's see how this looks. I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to slightly adjust it on the fly, like a pro streamer. All right, so let's talk about this week for the Wizards. We're going to bring Arun in as well, I believe. There he is. All right, sweet. All right, let me go to the second screen. There we go. That's the screen that I wanted to show. All right, so just adjusting how it looks a little bit on the Twitch side of things. All right, so let's break this week down. We thought they would probably win 1 of 3. We were correct that they won 1 of 3. It was not the game we predicted they would win. So a little bit different, but probably about the same result ultimately. First of all, I just want to bring in our new panel here real quickly, and then we'll talk about it. So, Arun, how are you doing tonight?
Not bad. Watching college basketball and also enjoying the show tonight.
Yeah, I forget. So I guess it's continuing on a Monday. Usually we don't see it on a Monday. Is that right? It's still.
Yeah, normally you don't see the first round. I'll normally see just the national championship game on a Monday.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool. What game are you watching right now? I should turn that on.
Maryland versus Alabama.
And the score is?
Alabama's up by 10 points right now at the beginning of the second half.
Okay. Well, hopefully Maryland will do better. I'm sorry, Brian. Maryland beat the team that you root for. I know that we were
it's okay.
we were having a debate back and forth when we were watching the Rangers game and that game both at the same time. But
I'll survive. I didn't even go to UConn. I'll survive.
Yeah, that's true. It's kind of like how I didn't ever go to UNC, but I root for UNC, and they also didn't do very well in this tournament. A lot of teams haven't, but we'll save our March Madness talk for the end of the segment. But I do want to pick both of your brains on that, since I know you both have been watching that. We'll bring in also DC's People's Champ. How are you doing tonight? I think you're muted on your phone.
Sorry about that. I'm well. I, had fun with this. We were streaming Fastlane last night. Our fun was a lot better than what we saw on TV. But we'll talk about that Saturday. But I'm here to talk basketball.
Sounds good. All right, let's talk. We'll talk basketball first, then we'll talk a little. We'll get a sense of what is on the No Spots podcast after that, and then I will talk with Brian and Arun more about March Madness after that. It's kind of how the second hour of Sports on the Hill podcast will go, or I think about 40 minutes. I don't think it'll take a whole hour to get through all that, but we'll see. Let's talk about the week that was for the Wizards now. They lost this game to the Kings that we kind of thought they were going to win, which is frustrating. But the Kings played really well in this game. The Wizards they actually outscored the Kings in the first 38-34, but then in the second, the Kings outscored them by 4. And then in the third, it kind of busted things open. They scored 36 to the Wizards 27. And then in the fourth quarter, the Wizards tried to make a game of it and scored 26 points. But they ended up falling to the Kings by just 2 points. Rui Hachimura had 17 points and 9 rebounds. Westbrook had a triple-double, 26 points, 10 assists, 14 rebounds. Bradley Beal at 29. He played pretty well. I'm going to start with Arun. What were some of your thoughts on this Kings game?
Overall, I guess the Wizards played down to the level of the competition, even though the Kings have a slightly better record. Westbrook was pretty clutch during the final minutes of this game. I think he had the team either final 4 or 6 points, but De'Aaron Fox hit a really nice jumper to put them up. And then the final inbound play was pretty bad where Westbrook threw it to no one in particular. And with 0.9 seconds left, the Wizards didn't even get a shot off. And a loss, which doesn't help the Wizards play out hopes that much.
Yeah, Champ, what were some of your thoughts on this game?
I just gotta say, again, that's the same point that Arun makes, the same point that we all seem to make on this podcast when we talk about the team is playing down to the level of their competition. The Kings are like middle of the road in terms of almost towards the bottom of the Western Conference. So this is supposed to be a team you're supposed to go in there and they're coming into your house from the West Coast. You're supposed to beat this team and beat this team soundly. And you didn't do that. Not only did you not beat this team soundly, but you let them beat you on a nearly last second buzzer beater or last second jumper and to get the victory. And then you don't even put up another fight and get a chance to have another shot at it. So it's frustrating to see a game like this where this is the game we said they gotta win this, they're gonna win this, and they end up not winning it. They end up losing it in like heartbreaking fashion. It's frustrating as a Wizards fan to see it, you know?
Yeah. Ryan, what are some of your thoughts from the outside perspective?
Oh yeah, I thought this was a game the Wizards were going to win easily, so I was very surprised that they lost this game. And actually, just looking at the stats here that you have pulled up, Robbie, to go 4 for 25 from 3-point, what is that, 16%? That's terrible. You gotta do better than that if you want to win in the NBA. It's today's NBA. And Arun mentioned it, the final play, the inbound play. There needs to be, I don't know, less confusion on that. There needs to be more clarity on this in a situation like that. Because, when you've got a chance to win a game like that or tie a game or whatever it is, you need to have your best play, and they clearly did not. I was very surprised they lost this game. I was very surprised. This was a game I thought they were going to win. I was very surprised.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I don't have a whole lot more to break down about this game, so let's get into the better game, the game that we thought they were going to lose, but that they won. So this game is against the Utah Jazz. They started off hot. The Wizards outscored them 31-20. In the second, they continued to play well, outscored them 33-26. It was the tied third, and the Jazz stormed back a little bit in garbage time, outscored them 40-31. But just overall, the Jazz did have 4 players in double figures, including Donovan Mitchell, scoring 42 points, and also a 34-point score. And so, I mean, the Jazz played well. But let's talk about the Wizards, who I thought just played a really great game. Bradley Beal finally scores over 40 points and wins the game. He had a streak of either 10 or 11 games where he had gotten over 40 points, but not won those games, which is the longest streak in the NBA, and so that's unfortunate. But I'm happy you finally got off the side there. 43 points, and then Russell Westbrook just filled the stat sheet. 15 rebounds, 13 assists, 35 points. For them to combine have 78 points, which is really incredible. Rui Hachimura added 12 points and 7 rebounds. Just a good overall game for them. I'm going to go to Champ first. What were some of your thoughts on this win?
Now, this is a game I actually legit watched and was just in awe by just how dominant this team was against the top team in the West. Like, this is amazing. I turned on the game, and they're up by double digits. I said, wait, am I seeing this right? Russell Westbrook had a triple-double, and a big triple-double, and it was his 13th triple-double in the season. So he's really starting to round the form and what he normally does and everything like that. I believe this was the end of, 11-game streak where when Bradley Beal was 40 or more, the Wizards lose. I think they broke that streak. And it also just broke a 5-game losing streak that this team had, and a 9-game losing streak against the Jazz overall. So everything about this game just shows the narrative that we say, that when they get a team that has a winning record or a tough team, they suddenly show up. And they showed up, and they showed up big, and they blew this team out. It was a 9-point final, but it was not as close as the final score.
Yeah, Arun, what are some of your thoughts on this win?
Overall, a pretty impressive win, even with Mike Conley out. He was resting in this one. Gobert missed his first 7 free throws, but yeah, Beal, he took off in the second half. The Wizards started the All-Star break 0-5, so it's good that they got a win. It might be too little, too late, but it's still a good win. Joe Ingles was on fire. He was hitting like pretty much everything, and Donovan Mitchell also had a great game. But it's a good thing that the Wizards held strong. I think they did a good job on Gobert protecting the glass, and a good win.
Yeah. I really want to give a shout out to everyone who's watching on Twitch. I really appreciate even if people are lurking and helping me get to affiliates. So thank you over there on Twitch. I know my friend Chris is watching, and I know other people are as well. So I really appreciate that. If anyone has any questions on Twitch, or I haven't shared this Facebook with the Wizards groups, but I'll usually we're gonna have a game tomorrow, so I'll probably clip this up and share it to the groups as a separate video clip tomorrow to release. Brian, what were some of your thoughts on this matchup?
Oh yeah, I totally did not expect the Wizards to win this game, but I think Mike Conley being out definitely helped. Mike Conley was an All-Star this year for the Jazz, and when he was out, I think that definitely gave the Wizards a little momentum. And not to mention, we talked about it, the Wizards playing up and down to their competition. Well, this is another example of that, where they're playing up to their competition, a team that you would not expect them to beat at all in the Utah Jazz, the top team in the Western Conference, and they do it very surprisingly. This is, and I think about what Arun says, too little, too late. Yeah, he's probably right. It is probably too little, too late. But you will take a win like this. This is a good win to have against the top team from the West. I'll take this win.
Yeah, it's crazy looking back at this week. They could have gone 3-0. I mean, that other game was very close. I mean, if they make some better plays down the stretch, maybe they win that game, or maybe they don't get themselves into too big of a hole. They win that game. They won this game. The next game we'll talk about was relatively close as well. So it's they're not far away. They're just not able to sort of get over that hump and get out of their way. And they've been able to play some of the better teams in the league better. I mean, coming, into the other game against the Nets that we'll just talk about, they had been playing pretty well against the Nets. They've been playing pretty well against a lot of some of the upper echelon teams. They were able to go on the West Coast and do some damage. It's tough because I don't really know what you do with the Wizards. It's not like you're in sell mode where you got to get rid of everything. You're not in buy mode because you're not just one piece away right now. A lot of teams are inquiring about Russell Westbrook. He's been playing pretty well. Do you trade him? What do you trade him for? There's a lot of questions around that. Let's get into the next game, and then maybe I'll ask you a couple of those questions to the panel, and we'll talk about the week ahead the 2 weeks ahead for the Wizards, because we will be taking next week off as our break between, this is our season 5 finale, and then we'll start season 6. It's crazy that we've been doing this for already 5 years. Season 6 starts in April, and we talked earlier that we'll bring baseball back to the fold as well. So the next game is against the Nets. Started off pretty well for the Wizards. They outscored the Nets 30-25. And then in the next quarter, the Nets kind of came back and outscored them 38-26. The Wizards did well in the third, outscored 27-25. But the Nets were able to kind of pull away at the very end, outscored 25-23. Rui Hachimura had 20 points and 10 rebounds. Alex Len had 20 points, 9 rebounds. Russell Westbrook had a triple-double, which is interesting. He had 2 13s and a 29. So 13 rebounds, 13 assists, and 29 points. So I thought that, he played well. Bradley Beal only scored 17 points, though, in 39 minutes played. The Nets had a couple of people that scored over 20, both Harden and Kyrie. And then had a couple of players in double digits in general. I'm going to go to Arun first. What were some of your thoughts on this game?
Overall, it was a much closer game than I expected. I forgot to mention in the last game, Davis Bertans got injured with a calf injury, so that left the Wizards bench shorthanded. I think they only scored 14 bench points for this one. But a very winnable game down the stretch. Bradley Beal, though, was not really that good in this game. Only 17 points. The Nets defense did key on him. Perhaps they could have spread the ball around, more shots for Rui. He was 9-11 from the field, which is a pretty incredible percentage. Matthews only had 5 shots for all 3-pointers. The bench was just outmatched. And Blake Griffin, his first dunk, I think it was his first appearance as well with the Nets. First dunk in 1.5 years, which is pretty incredible for Blake Griffin. Maybe he was dogging it a bit in Detroit to get out, but didn't even really need him. Claxton was key for the bench from the Nets. Harden was big down the stretch. Even Kyrie didn't have a good shooting night. He slowed down Bradley Beal enough. It wasn't a bad loss, but at this stage of the season, the Wizards need this win. But they did play well, so that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, no, I think it's telling. I mean, the problem is they are in desperate need of wins. We'll look at the standings in a moment, but it's just they need to every game pretty much. They have to win 2 out of every 3 remaining games to probably make the playoffs at this point. So we'll see if they can do that. Champ, what are some of your thoughts on this game?
This is one of the games that we all predicted that they would lose, and they lost, but it was still a fairly competitive loss for them. Again, Russell Westbrook with a triple double. Kyrie and James Harden, though, I mean, both of them scored nearly 30 points. Just absolutely unbelievable. They just put that team on their back to lead them down the stretch. I mean, Russ put the team on his back in the late part of the fourth quarter, trying to get them to within 3, but just too much of the Nets. A couple dunks and fouls in there for a couple 3-point plays just made it too much. And then a big note is that Blake Griffin, found himself in the game for the first time since being bought out by the Detroit Pistons and dunked for the first time since December 2019. So he got his first dunk in almost 2 years and got to play some minutes on his new team. So he got some time. But all in all, we were expecting this to be a loss. And it sucks that it's a loss because, as everybody's been saying, you need wins at this point. The second half of the season, playoffs are creeping up very, very quickly. And the more losses you accumulate, the more chances you have of not making the playoffs and sitting and watching it the rest of the way.
Yeah. Brian, any final thoughts on this one before we take a look at the schedule ahead?
No, not really. I think everybody sums it up really well. This is a game, with there not being a ton of time left in the season, they honestly have to win. I will highlight, though, one player from Brooklyn who I think is kind of underrated, and considering, all of the star players on their team, I think he doesn't get talked about a lot, and that'd be Nicholas Claxton. He had a really nice game for Brooklyn in this game. He had 16 points, I think, off the bench. So, Arun mentioned it, the bench disparity in this game. So, if that's happening, the Wizards aren't going to win a lot of games. And like you guys said, they pretty much have to win every game, like 2 out of 3 at the most now. So, just to even have a chance to get into the playoffs. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. All right, let's take a look at the schedule ahead. We can also pull up the standings real quickly in the NBA, just so people can see what it looks like in the Eastern Conference. 76ers at the top here, then the Nets, Bucks, Hawks, Heat, Celtics. Then Brian's Knicks are 7th, 8th is Hornets, Pacers 9, Bulls 10, Raptors 11, Cavaliers 12, Wizards are 13, Magic 14, and then Pistons are 15. Now, if people remember, it's the top 10 teams will make the playoffs, and 7 will play 10, 8 plays 9 in the new format. So they're still only about 4 games back, but they've got to jump a lot of teams. So that's why they've got to really try to win, especially on these head-to-head matchups against the Bulls, the Cavaliers, and the Raptors. When they play those teams, they'll need to definitely win some of those games to have any chance at this. Coming up here, we've actually got 2 games against the Knicks. We've got one tomorrow, Tuesday at 7:30, if you're not listening to it live or on a replay. The Wizards will then play the Knicks again on Thursday, and then on Saturday, the Pistons come to town. And then let's break down those first 3 games, and then we'll talk about week 2 in a moment. I'll start with Brian. We're playing your Knicks twice and the Pistons in this first week. What are some of your thoughts on that week?
Well, even though I'm a Knicks fan, I'm gonna say that they're going to split the Knicks games. I think it's just tough to win 2 in a row against the same team in the NBA. I just think it's gonna be a challenge. The Knicks, I will say though, I think the Knicks, if the Knicks are going to win one of the 2 games, it's gonna be tomorrow's game because the Knicks are coming off of a frustrating loss to the Philadelphia 76ers last night in overtime. That left a bad taste in everyone's mouth, including mine. And so I'm hoping that they can just, put that all to bed and win the game tomorrow. But I think they'll split the Knicks games. I think the Knicks games will be 1 each. And as far as the Pacers game goes, or the Pistons game is the one after that, right?
Right. Yeah.
The Pistons game, the Pistons are the worst team in the Eastern Conference. I mean, they've been terrible all season. So I think the Wizards will at least win that one. So I think they'll win 2 out of these 3 games.
All right, Champ, what are your thoughts?
Interesting nugget here is that this will be the first regular season meeting between the Pistons. Well, because the next game will split. I agree with Brian. We'll split those. But the Pistons, this will be our first regular season meeting against them. Because remember, we met them in the preseason, but then our first regular season meeting was postponed when we had the COVID outbreak. So this will be the first time we're facing them during the regular season. And their record shows that they're not very good. But this is a game that scares me because of the fact that they're not very good might mean this team is going to play down to their level and get beat. And that's what scares me the most. They'll play down and they'll get beat. So I'm going to very cautiously predict 2-1 with a split with the Knicks and beating the Pistons, but it's a very, very cautious 2-1.
Yeah. What do you think, Corinne?
Yeah, I think I'm leaning 2-1 the same way. And, maybe the Brass will give an assist to the Wizards, just like they gave the 76ers last night. Although I actually don't even think it was that long, but that was just like my opinion watching it. But I like Randall getting fired up, but I actually think now the Raps are going to be angry with Randall and give the Wizards one of those games for sure. And I think they'll beat the Pistons, but who knows with the Wizards actually.
Right. All right. So then I think that all makes sense. I think it'll probably be 2-1 as well. All right. Then we got next Monday. If you're missing Sports on the Hill podcast, you can still watch the Wizards. They'll play the Pacers Monday at 7. And then the Hornets on Tuesday at 7. And then they play the Pistons again on Thursday, April 1st. And then on Saturday, they play Dallas. And then they will play the Raptors the following Monday. And we'll be doing a post-game show for the Raptors game. So that week, we kind of have 5 games to talk about because we'll be doing a post-game. So it's Pacers, Hornets, Pistons, Mavericks, and Raptors. I'll leave it up on screen because that's a lot. But just your quick thoughts on week 2. I'm going to start and go in reverse order. We're going to go with Arun first on the week 2.
On those games in particular?
Yeah, or I mean, if you want to speak about any specific one, or if you want to just give your general thoughts on them, you can do that as well.
Just I think they'll potentially beat the Hornets because now LaMelo Ball is out. And then I forgot to mention, since we're playing the Pistons, they'll play Sadiq Bey, who actually went to Sidwell Friends and went to Villanova University. So that should be an interesting matchup.
Nice. What are things that stand out to you, Champ, in the week 2?
Just what Arun just brought up, like LaMelo Ball is very, very devastating. Broken ribs is going to keep him out the rest of the season. Kid was having a great rookie year, and I kind of, I figured that if he was playing that game, he would be the one to watch out for. I look at this, and I'm thinking 3-2. I think they can take the Pacers, and I think they can take the Pacers. The Hornets may be tough because of the back-to-back. So I think they go 1-1 there, and then I think they beat the Pistons, and I think they beat the Raptors, but I think they lose to the Mavericks. So I'm going 3-1, and that's what I'm thinking. Pacers, Pistons, and Raptors lose to the Hornets and the Mavericks.
3-2. All right. If you're gonna go with a record, Brian, What are your thinking of those 5?
Yeah, I think they're going to beat the Pacers, Hornets now that LaMelo's out, and the Pistons. I think they're going to win those 3 games in a row, and then probably lose to the Mavericks. Although personally, as a Knicks fan, I'm hoping you win that game because the Knicks have the Mavericks draft pick, and the more the Mavericks lose, that more that helps the Knicks. So I'm hoping for a Mavericks loss there. I'm gonna go 3-2. I'm gonna say they win those 3 games in a row, lose to the Mavericks, lose to the Raptors. I'm gonna say that.
Okay, sounds good. And wait, someone didn't make their picks. Was it Champ?
For me.
Oh, it was a Rune. Yeah, Rune, you make the picks.
I'll go 2 and 3. The Mavs game is interesting because Beal got ejected regarding Luka Doncic last year, but I think they beat the Hornets and the Pistons and lose the rest of the game.
That makes sense. I think that's probably right. So we're thinking they'll probably get 4 wins and maybe 4 losses. It's 8 games, is that right? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. So maybe 4 and 4 overall. That's sort of the overall consensus, it seems. And we'll see how they do. It'll be an interesting 2 weeks for sure. I'm going to quickly, let me see if I can swap this out. And all right, we got a March Madness bracket. So I'm going to bring that up in a second. I'm going to stop the well, no, I'll just I'll leave this up real quickly, but I'll let Champ real quickly. I know that you have not been watching March Madness, so I'll let you give your take on what's happening in the wrestling world before we let you go, and then we'll talk March Madness after that.
Right. So last night after Fastlane, Andrade, who had asked for his release last Monday, was granted his release finally yesterday. And he has a no-compete clause, which means he can go to any wrestling any wrestling company he wants, literally tomorrow. So there's that. And his fiance, Charlotte Flair, tweeted out today that the reason she's been missing from TV, she caught COVID, unfortunately, but she's doing well. We'll talk about all of that this Saturday on No Spots, and also we'll talk about the card for Sakura Genesis in New Japan. We'll also recap Fastlane, which was an average pay-per-view. All that this Saturday, 5 p.m. on our Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitch.
Hey, Champ. I got a quick question for you, wrestling related. I'm watching Raw right now, and I saw a commercial. When did Roman Reigns link up with Paul Heyman?
Oh, that happened. That happened after SummerSlam. It just came out of nowhere. He's that Paul Heyman. Roman Reigns has his gimmick. He's known as the tribal chief, the head of the table, and Paul Heyman is his special counsel. So that's how that happened. So yeah, that happened. That's probably one of the best storylines and one of the best characters right now on TV, SmackDown and Raw.
Yeah, I rarely watch SmackDown. I watch Raw all the time, and I saw the commercial, and I had to do a double take. Like, when did he link up with Paul Heyman? I'm really done fell off. I gotta check out y'all podcast more often.
Yeah. We call on our podcast. We call him Mob Boss Roman because his character is like a mob boss more and more. But yeah,
That's awesome. So I just want to let people know, if they go to sportsothp.com or webandgames.com, and then I'm showing people live, you can see we have all of our latest podcasts up there, all of our recaps, things of that nature. You can listen to our podcast here if they want to, but the most important thing for this segment, click the podcast partners button, then you go down, you click the No Spots podcast, and boom, just like that, you got all of the great shows that Champ does. So I encourage everybody to go do that and follow the No Spots podcast on whatever streaming platform or whatever podcast platform that they like to do. They can check them out. They're also doing stuff on Twitch as well. Give a quick little shout out to your Twitch handle.
Yeah, it's twitch.tv/true No Spots Pod. We do stream the podcast there, and we stream live pay-per-view reactions there whenever we have pay-per-view. So go check that out. Robbie informed me that our podcast, our stream from last night's already gotten 77 views in less than 24 hours. It's awesome, but definitely check that out. We're gonna start doing some more stuff once we get a little bit more of a following. So just stay tuned.
giving you a shout out over on my Twitch channel right now into the chat, so people go follow that. I'll post that link there. Well, thank you so much, Champ. I really appreciate your time as always, and we're going to switch gears, talk a little bit of March Madness before we end this basketball segment. But we really appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you in 2 weeks when we start season 6.
Yeah, absolutely. Enjoy the week off, guys, and y'all have a good night.
Thank you so much. All right, we're going to bring up the bracket again, and then I'm going to show people how easy it is to find Brian Brennan's podcast where he talks more about March Madness than I do. But let's talk about it just real quickly. Some of the upsets and some of the big moments that you've seen, both Arun and Brian. I know you guys have been watching it a little bit closer than I have this season. A lot of upsets this year. I'm going to let each one of you guys give some of your favorite games and some of the biggest upsets and your just general thoughts as we sort of get into the Sweet 16 here. Again, it's kind of a delayed format this year. There's games on Monday. There weren't games earlier in the week. It's usually on Thursday, but they started on Friday. So definitely some major upsets that have happened. We're going to start off with Brian. What are some of your biggest upsets that and some of the best games that you've seen so far?
The biggest upset, I think, of the tournament so far has been probably Oral Roberts. Has been kind of the story of the tournament so far. They upset number 2 Ohio State in a pretty good game in the first round, and then they went on and beat Florida in the round of 32, and now they're in the Sweet 16. So Oral Roberts is like Cinderella written all over it. I had never heard of the school. In fact, I even said on my podcast on Friday, I even said this matchup is no contest. Ohio State's going to kill Oral Roberts. I thought Oral Roberts had no chance. But here they are. They've made it to the Sweet 16. Another story I'm kind of watching a little bit this year is Syracuse kind of came into the seed. I guess they were kind of underseeded a little bit. They're an 11 seed, but they're in the Sweet 16 too. Jim Boeheim's son is on the team this year, Buddy Boeheim, and he's been the best player on the team for them so far. So I've been watching Syracuse a lot lately too. Keep my eye on them. Abilene Christian was an upset as well. They lost today, but they were a big upset. They were a 13 seed that won. There have been a lot of upsets. It makes you wonder if the seeding has been if they really knew what they were doing when it came to seeding this year, just based on how many upsets there's been. Maybe they just kind of it's kind of like how everybody picked their brackets this year. None of us really saw a lot of college basketball. So maybe that's kind of how they went into it this year with the bracket. Nobody just really saw it. Nobody really knew what we were doing.
Well, I think they're hurt a little bit because there's not so much conference play.
Exactly.
And so you don't know if a division or a conference is good because they're not playing each other. So they're only playing within each other, and so it's difficult to see, especially when a lot of these matchups and a lot of styles of play are so different. So they haven't had a lot of practice against some of these other styles, and I think that it's come to fruition. So what were, some of your favorite games to watch? I mean, you talked about some of the upsets.
That was the one that I mentioned. Was the Oral Roberts Ohio State was actually one of my favorite games to watch. That was actually probably my favorite game to watch so far this tournament, just because of how big of an upset it was. I love upsets. The UConn Maryland game, I watched that game closely too, because I'm a UConn fan, and I also have friends who went to Maryland, so I was gonna be okay, I guess, no matter what happened in that one. But Maryland won that one. A great defensive effort from Maryland. Rutgers, their first game was pretty good too. I can't even remember against Clemson. That was a pretty good game. Rutgers Clemson. That was another one of my favorite games. The 10-7 matchup. That was a pretty good one. Those were probably my favorite games for the tournament, I would say.
Yeah. Arun, what were some of your favorite games and some of the upsets that stood out to you?
I think the Oral Roberts, as Brian mentioned, that was a pretty big upset. But I think the Abilene Christian game versus Texas, that was a crazy back and forth game. It actually had a similar ending to that Knicks game yesterday, where I actually didn't think there was a foul on that Abilene Christian play, at least warrant the free throws. But the call is a call, and Texas probably should have done enough before that to win that game. I think the Maryland UConn game was interesting because I thought the Big East maybe they actually would have more teams. Like Georgetown lost huge in that game, but Maryland came out on top. But Creighton did play well, and my favorite game obviously was the Winthrop Villanova game. A lot of popular people's picks was picking Winthrop over Villanova, and even for the tournament, I was just like I wasn't expecting much because they're one of Villanova's best players, point guard Colin Gillespie, was ruled out for the season, and Winthrop actually has a really good team, and I think they may have actually won a game against somebody else. And as for the tournament just being unpredictable, Villanova was not playing well at all going into the tournament, and I think coaching and just like tournaments, there are no crowds, obviously, or the crowd sizes are limited, so there's not as much of a home court advantage for the higher seeds. But overall, it's just pretty crazy. The Wisconsin North Carolina game, I was actually surprised by the margin of that victory, and I didn't see many people picking Wisconsin before that beat North Carolina, and it's like the first time the North Carolina's lost in the first round. I think like it was some crazy statistic. I'm not sure what exactly it was, but overall, it's just Virginia losing in the first round again was also pretty crazy. They had COVID going into the tournament. Oregon, they completed a big upset today as well. They didn't even play their first game of the season because of COVID, and so it's just been pretty crazy. But the favorites that were going in, Gonzaga and Baylor, they had pretty dominant wins, and perhaps they'll make deep runs. Although the Baylor Villanova game should be an interesting matchup.
So
I just want to say one last game that I also really liked was the game that happened yesterday between Illinois and Loyola Chicago. I thought that was a really good game too. I'm really liking the Loyola Chicago story. I just really like the Loyola Chicago story every year they're in the tournament with Sister Jean. So I want to say I'm rooting for them as well. I just want to say I like that story too.
Yeah, so I'm taking a look and trying to shrink the bracket down so you can kind of see where we're at going forward. This is kind of, the Sweet 16 is kind of finalizing, right? And so knowing what we know now, which is obviously different than what we knew going into this tournament, who do you guys think are the most likely to make the Final Four and maybe to the championship game? I'll start off with Brian.
I still think Gonzaga is going to make the national championship game. They were my favorite to win it all when this whole tournament started. So I'm going to stick with Gonzaga. Baylor is another. I had Baylor in my national championship game, so I think Baylor will still make the Final Four. Sorry, Arun, I know they play Villanova next, but I think Baylor is going to still make the Final Four. I can't see the rest of the bracket, but off the top of my head, but I know for a fact like those are the teams that I definitely think are definitely still going to make the Final Four. They look like the strongest teams for like Gonzaga and Baylor. Like Gonzaga in particular, to me, looks like the strongest team in the tournament. Like they look like the best team still in the tournament.
Yeah, Arun, what are some of your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Gonzaga looks like they're in a class by themselves. The Oklahoma game was actually reasonably close with like 5 minutes to go, and then Gonzaga just pulled ahead by double digits. In fact, they've only lost one game this season by less than double digits, and they're undefeated. Obviously, and going in the second half when they have a lead, and so they're going to be a pretty tough out. I like Alabama and chances to get to the Final Four. They're on fire from three. They actually have a former Villanova transfer, Quinterly, who did not match well with Jay Wright, but they have a lot of other players who are a lot better than Quinterly. Baylor, they've just trounced everybody, so I admit I have not really watched them play closely. They have extremely good size. I think the Villanova-Baylor game will be a close one, but I also had Baylor going to the Final Four in my original bracket, but I will say Villanova is playing a lot better than they were at any point of the season, especially since they got this Brian Antoine. He's on fire from three. Like, he's been injured most of the season, and he's giving them some production off the bench. So if Villanova hit 70% of their threes at one point in the North Texas game, they could win, but Baylor's side is going to be pretty tough. And maybe Oral Roberts, who knows? Maybe they can keep it going. That would be quite a story if they can keep it going and beat Arkansas, and maybe, who knows, maybe they'll play Baylor matchup.
Interesting. Brian, I wanted to scroll down so you could see the bottom side of the bracket if you wanted to mention any of those other things. I know there's Syracuse, Houston, Loyola, Chicago versus Oregon State, Michigan versus
Yeah,
Florida
I'm
State.
definitely rooting for Loyola Chicago. Like I said, I really like their story. I've always been a big fan of Sister Jean. And I'm really impressed with her to be at 101 years old at the NCAA tournament and still. I was actually talking about this with Tim offline. Tim said that Sister Jean at age 101 still lives independently on her own in Chicago, which just is incredible to me. So I really like the Loyola Chicago story. I'm rooting for her. And Syracuse, like I said, I don't really like Syracuse. I don't really like Jim Boeheim, but I think, the story with him is coaching his son this year is kind of a nice story. So I kind of like that story too from Syracuse this year. That's another thing I'm keeping my eye on the rest of the tournament.
Sounds good. All right. Well, I will stop sharing this, but before I do, I just want to show people, and then we'll say our goodbyes. If you go to sportsothb.com, you click upon the podcast partners button, this button right here, and then you click upon further review with Brian Brennan, and then you get all of his latest shows, and he talks about March Madness and a lot of other stuff. So he's on his 35th show right here, and I know that he'll be filming or recording another one later this week, recapping some of this stuff. So I'll stop screen sharing there, but I just want to encourage people to go check that out. But before I let Brian do his goodbye, I want to let Arun get his thoughts and final thoughts before we let him go tonight.
Yeah, my final thoughts are, as I didn't see Carroll, if he had filled out a bracket or not in Brian's group. And I think this would have been a perfect.
He did. I don't think he did.
No, he did not.
It's been a perfect year for him to do it because I believe my mom is in last place. So it would have been like the opportunity for Carroll to really glow.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to put a bracket out of Arun. I didn't watch any college basketball. It wasn't even.
Nobody watched any college basketball this year. That's like the theme of the group this year.
Yeah, I just didn't have time. With the selling cars and doing shows and promoting, I just didn't have time to even fill the bracket out.
It's okay.
It's fine.
We won't hold it against you. But I am enjoying the bracket, even though I obviously had no idea what I was doing in it. But I always appreciate Brian for putting it together. And congratulations for Arun, because I think he's leading this thing right now. Is that right, still?
I don't know. I think it's going to end ugly. I picked my mom's school to win it all, and they in Illinois got knocked out. So it's not going to end very well for my bracket.
Okay, yeah, because you were doing really well for a while. I'm pulling it up right now, the results, but yeah, it's but obviously when your team goes out, it really hurts you. I'm in 11th place already, so I'm not doing so great. So it's a Brian, but a different Brian saying he hate me bracket.
Yeah, it's BRYAN, right?
Yeah. Is that hurt? No.
I think it might be hurt. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, it'd be funny if that is. First place with 41 points. So it's just weird that he wouldn't write Hurts bracket, but I don't know.
Yeah. That's why it might not be him. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. And Arun, you're in second place right now with 39 points. But we'll definitely, when we bring back our show for the season 6 premiere, I think it's the night of the championship game. So we might talk a little bit more basketball at the very end of that segment as well. But Arun, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Sure, thanks for having me on.
All right, Brian, let people know anything interesting that's in last week's show or the upcoming week's show before we let you go.
Yeah, so this past Friday's episode I thought was really good. It was it's a little outdated now, but I think it's still really good. It's an NCAA tournament preview. just getting everybody ready for the tournament, and then just talking about the outro, a bunch of stories like Jennifer Lopez and A-Rod breaking up and things like that. And then, I'm recording an episode this week for Friday, and then next week I might be going back to 2 episodes a week because I want to do a baseball preview episode, but I also want to preview the Final Four. So there's a lot I want to talk about next week. So I might do 2 episodes next week.
Well, there you go. If you miss out on podcasts, that can be your
exactly.
So.
Sports on the Hill fans, come on over to Upon Further Review with Brian Brennan for a week. But it's a lot of content on the way.
That sounds good. Yeah. So if you want your baseball preview or your more March Madness talk, that's definitely the place to go. And we'll bring Brian back in 2 weeks for our basketball talk, but also for the return of baseball talk, which I know Carol is very excited about.
Yes, indeed. Can't wait for some Nats baseball, baby.
Yeah, awesome.
That'll be awesome. Well, Brian, thank you so much, as always, for being a contributor. I think this is your 4th season that you've been a part of, so I appreciate it as always, and we'll talk to you in 2 weeks.
Have a good one, guys. Have a good one.
All right, Brian, take it easy.
All right, Carol. We got some March Madness in there. We got football. We got hockey. We got NBA in there. I don't know if there's any news coming out of Nats preseason or anything related to baseball that you wanted to mention in the outro or anything. I know we mentioned a lot of football stuff in the intro, but any final thoughts you have? And if not, then I would suggest that we just give our final thoughts on season 5 and then we can wrap it up.
Yeah, just, going to be, season 6 is going to be, adventurous. Got the Nationals, got the football off season. We'll be, getting close to the hockey playoffs, basketball, playoffs. We heard the Wizards aren't doing too well, but as always, we appreciate you guys tuning in, listening in, watching, streaming, podcasting. We've expanded over the 5 years from just me and Robbie starting out to now we have a team.
Now we're streaming on like 5 platforms and different angles, and we do some pretty crazy stuff. We're trying to always push the envelope. But one thing I wanted to mention that was really exciting, at least for me in season 5, I love doing the Zoom. First of all, I think that bringing in people on the video and bringing in fans and our supporters and all that sort of stuff and doing that. But just the doors just opened up in the interviews we've been able to do. I think having a vice president of the Washington football team on camera with us earlier with Julie Donaldson was really a highlight for me in season 5. Also bringing in the Flea, having an ex-NFL player, from an era that a lot of our fans didn't even know much about. I'd like to maybe get him on in season 6 again and do a follow-up show with him. I thought he was great, so something to look forward to there. One thing I'd like to do in season 6 also is I know there's a ton of music streamers and other streamers out there that love sports, but they do things that are not sports related, and so they don't feel like they can talk sports in their segments. So I'm going to start doing it on my Twitch channel, and I might also share it on our Facebook and a couple of other places, interview a couple of these streamers and talk about their love of their sports teams, and we'll talk about the love of sports just in general. So not just about Washington, D.C. sports, but just about loving sports and the love of streaming. Like, we love doing it for this, and they love doing music streams or game streams and stuff like that. So a couple of things that are around the corner in season 6 to look out for. And we got Twitch to work. We were able to show the stats on screen, so I think that we will continue in season 6 to broadcast on Twitch and try to grow a platform on there as well. So we really appreciate people for tuning in on that. But what were some of your other favorite moments about season 5? We got 33 episodes in our COVID-shortened season, which I thought was pretty impressive. There was a time where I didn't know we would get 33 episodes in a season 5, but it's been a pretty interesting year.
Definitely talking to Miss Julie Donaldson was, a highlight for me, to be able to get the vice president of the Washington football team on the air with us. Just always the great content, branching out, doing sports on at the bar radio on Sunday nights, bringing Sports on the Hill to a different venue and different group of people that probably wouldn't be watching. The partnership with Arakusa, Sports on PHP, another, brand of our network that Robbie and I started. So it's just amazing where we came from, where we are now, where we're going. You know, right now with my new career selling vehicles, I haven't been able to put all the time that I usually put into the brand and the show and expanding and reaching out and networking. But you know, stay tuned. I've been rubbing elbows with some different types of people, and be on the lookout. You don't know where we might pop up at, especially with At the Bar Radio. We're actually taking off this Sunday. Also, 151 going out of town for a vacation down in Miami. I wish I could go, but I got to sell some cars. So I'll be off there for 2 weeks for the first time in 5 years. So it's going to be very interesting how I'm going to be able to not be able to talk sports on the air for a whole week. But as always, appreciate all the followers, supporters, contributors, folks that tune in, folks that buy the apparel, folks that just rock with us and inbox me with questions about the teams, man. Just appreciate all the love and support, and we're gonna keep doing what we do, man. DC Sports without the politics. It's not just a catchphrase. It's not just a motto. It's what we do. And on that note, I'm gonna end the show as always with Renegade 703, Money Convo, which I made my active debut in. If you never checked out the video, I'm a multifaceted individual. So stay tuned for so much more. Season 6 around the corner. Nats, Capitals, Washington football team, Wizards, DC Sports about the politics, baby, is what we do.
And if you're watching on Twitch, I'm going to actually do my very first raid after a show. So we're going to raid Sarah Cameron Music over on my Twitch channel. We really appreciate everyone for tuning in for that as well. And I'm excited to bring it to another platform in season 6.
No doubt. We expand and never know where you might see us next. Still working on getting on IG streaming live. That might be in the works for season 6 also. So be on the lookout. Go follow Renegade 703 on Instagram and YouTube. Make sure you go follow my YouTube, Carol Go to the Third with 3 eyes, SportsOTHP.com, SportsOTHP Apparel, Arakusa, At the Bar Radio, Beats by CP3. We everywhere. Y'all be safe, and we'll see you in April.
Money, make you shut him off. Don't never ever talk about it if you never had the clout. You don't know what to say, stay up out of my way. Cause money, make you shut him off. Keep playing with this goonies, boy, I'm gonna have to make the call. Stay in bounds on your pivot, boy, if you gon' ball. Cause a lot of niggas be fake, and you really can't play. Cause we done got it out the mud, nigga, what you talking about? Screaming, oh my God, money got me pride. They living a lie, look into my eyes, they might seem surprised. This is homicide. We just multiply. We been on the rise. If we got some wings, fuck it, we gon' have to fly. Money, what you talking about? Day in my life, take me a different route. Use all my case, niggas on my face. You can get erased, what you talking about? Money's what I'm talking about. We don't really know what you been talking about. And you don't really want to play. You don't know what to say. Cause money, 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 money's what I'm talking about. We don't really know what you always been talking about. And I don't wanna be the one who always really talk about. And you don't really want to play. You don't know what to say. Cause money, 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 money's what I'm talking about. You never crossing these borders. I'm whipping it up, Gordon Ramsay. I swear that I'm cooking these orders. You talk about me, you better just hope that you can just really afford it. I'm balling, I'm balling, I'm winning, I'm winning. I'm feeling like Robert's a horror. Nigga, I'm scoring. I count in the morning. They talk about me, then I gotta ignore it. My bitches be foreign. So independent, my money be corporate. These raps is boring. You hate me and I'm always gonna adore it. I'm smoking that soaring. She always go ahead and let me explore it. I call her my Dora. You can go and talk about me, I ain't flawless. I go put my all in. If a nigga talk about me, then I'm gone in. You know that I'm gone in. Jump in, take trips, Pompeii. All day, always keep 3 stacks like Andre. I get it, I get it, I get it, I get it, man. And you can never, ever, ever get rid of that. So watch what you say, and watch how you do. If you play the game, then you play by the rules. Money, 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 money's what I'm talking about. We don't really know what you've been talking about. And you don't really want to play. You don't know what to say. Cause money, 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 money's what I'm talking about. We don't really know what you always been talking about. And I don't wanna be the one who always really talk about. And you don't really want to play. You don't know what to say. Cause money, 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 money's what I'm talking about.
Renegade 703, hottest thing in the DMV. Make sure you go follow, go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Over 500,000 streams on all platforms. It's not hard to find.
Don't get this motherfucker right. Right.
If you ain't a boss, switch your position. They hating me on the low. I cannot listen. I pack your bag if you tripping. I got me your superstition that you been looking for ways. Get me up off this mission. My grandma told me, boy, watch what you pitching. You stay safe at the base and not what you whipping. They just all in my business. Scotty knows just what I'm pippin'. Flow like I be rapping, tiptoeing J's when I'm riffing. They say I be hot, but I think I'm sizzling. Surgically put on the clinic, spit it out just to a dentist. Try to do me some good, but they say I'm a menace. We back and forth like it's tennis, and I can't mold out my image. But we can't really change what you already felt, and nobody can say we never did help, never did it to mention. So let's calm all the tension. Let's just show you what's real and just get back to this business, you know. Trying to make a flip up off a quarter P. This is what it is and what it's supposed to be. I've been right here if you ain't noticed me. It's them Southside squad niggas for the D. We been right here if you ain't noticed me. We been right here if you ain't noticed me. We been right here if you ain't noticed me. We been right here if you ain't noticed me. A rapper step up to me. That be a no-no, I be deaf cause they so-so, WWE. I got the game in a chokehold, stamp it just like a logo. Just keep it on the low-low, they like I'm back on my mojo. Man, I still be great, either riding or solo. Used to bag up them Cinco's, just to make back that Ocho. Going into OT, when I was loving that Coco. Spit it all on some promo, I'm broke hoe. Man, all of these threats, I might just buy me a fofo. Try and get all of these checks, so I don't see you just no more. Man, you rapping ass niggas, I see you done change. Even when I touch my first million, I stay the same. You can't deliver, does y'all know? Fuck this game like a porno. They hearing this like, oh no, ain't from DC, but he go. Trying to make a flip up off a quarter P. This is what it is and what it's